friends. Bear and I are with you today to talk about one of the most beloved hymns in all the hymn books, which is What a Friend We Have in Jesus. When I told Jake this is the one I wanted to focus on, he went, "Oh, you mean Christ Almighty, what a pal?" And we cracked up laughing, which was so wonderful and healing, really, to be able to laugh together in these days of pandemic. But also, the more I dwell in this commentary and the stories behind these hymns, I'm constantly reminded too that these hymns were born out of so many dark nights of the soul, so many days of tragedy, so many hours of sickness and being away from family and friends for almost, like in this story, the majority of this poet's life. And so that also, just like laughter, encouraged me and reminded me why we as a Christian congregation continue to come back to the ministry of these hymns, because deep in their history are similar circumstances of what we are going through right now. And so, even though we love this hymn so much and find so much comfort and encouragement in the questions of this particular hymn too, that's what I love. The second verse, have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. So I think you'll find a real ministry in this hymn this week, whose basis comes from Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ Jesus. Joseph Scriven watched in shock as the body of his fiancée was pulled from the lake. Their wedding had been planned for the next day. Reeling from the tragedy, he made up his mind to emigrate to America. Packing up his belongings in Dublin, Ireland, he sailed for Canada, leaving his mother behind. He was about 25 years old. 10 years later, in 1855, he received word that his mother was facing a crisis. Joseph wrote this poem and sent it to her. Mrs. Scriven evidently gave a copy to a friend who had it published anonymously, and it quickly became a popular hymn, although no one knew who had written it. Meanwhile, Joseph fell in love again. But tragedy struck a second time when his bride, Eliza Catherine Roche, contracted tuberculosis and died in 1860, before their wedding could take place. To escape his sorrow, Joseph poured himself into ministry, doing charity work for the Plymouth Brethren and preaching among the Baptists. He lived a simple, obscure life in Port Hope, Canada, cutting firewood for widows, giving away his clothes and money to those in need. He was described as a man of short stature with iron gray hair, close cropped beard, and light blue eyes that sparkled when he talked. Ira Sankey later wrote, until a short time before his death, it was not known that he had a poetic gift. A neighbor, sitting up with him in his illness, happened upon a manuscript copy of What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Reading it with great delight and questioning Mr. Scriven about it, he said that he had composed it for his mother to comfort her in a time of special sorrow, not intending that anyone else should ever see it. Sometime later, when another Port Hope neighbor asked him if it was true that he had composed the hymn, His reply was, "The Lord and I did it between us." On October the 10th, 1896, Joseph became critically ill. In his delirium, he rose from his bed and staggered outdoors, where he fell into a small creek and drowned at the age of 66. His grave was arranged so that his feet were opposite those of his last lost love, Eliza Catherine, that at the resurrection they might arise facing one another. Okay, dear friends, grab those Methodist hymnals and let's sing Christ Almighty, What a Pal. Hymn number 526. So remember, love one another, take care of one another, and we'll see you again real soon.